So, I mean, obviously with Hawkeye and especially Jeremy Renner being the most loved Avenger and Avengers actor within the MCU, we all knew that Hawkeye was going to be a massive hit. It was just kind of a shoe-in cash grab as far as popularity goes. You know what I mean? Now, all jokes aside, with the borderline irrelevance, and I wouldn't necessarily call it hate, but people just not really caring at all about Hawkeye or Jeremy Renner.
I'm Clint.
I don't care.
It really is spectacular to see the amount of love that people have for this Hawkeye show, the amount of love that went into making it and crafting it and keeping it true to the comics, which, by the way, you will notice in this that I have a little bit more knowledge of the comics, more so than I usually do. And that's because this is the first thing within the MCU movie or show now that has given me interest for the comic that has inspired it. And I will go into that a little bit later on within this video. But first, I want to give a very quick synopsis of this Hawkeye TV show. So, Hawkeye opens on Jeremy Renner spending time in New York City with his family. How he's planning on keeping his family secret and under wraps while going to Rogers the Musical without any disguise whatsoever is a little bit of a plot hole that you're just going to have to look past. I understand they're a super secret spy couple with super secret kids on a super secret farm working for a super secret organization, but they also just go out in public in New York City, the city that he saved, and multiple people recognize him. But whatever, I can look past that minor thing. But while he's in New York City going to the Rogers Musical, he sees that somebody has taken the Ronin costume and is doing some vigilante justice throughout New York City. And this is a bit of a problem, because if you remember, the Ronin is a little bit controversial for murdering just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Just brutally murdering lots and lots of people. So slightly controversial figure, the Ronin. Now, the person wearing the Ronin costume is none other than Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop, who is inspired by Hawkeye from a young age when she saw him jump off a building when Loki was attacking New York City and thought, hey, if he can do that, I can do that. So spent the rest of her life up until now, where she is 22 years old, deciding to be the next Hawkeye. She is amazing with the bow and arrow. She describes herself as the best archer in the world next to Hawkeye. She knows martial arts. All of these fun things needed to be a superhero, but she's also a spoiled rich girl.
Money, please! Money, please.
But she gets into some trouble from the tracksuit mafia who the Ronin wronged in the past, and Clint Barton has to save her ass from this. And then chaos ensues when multiple other characters such as Maya and Kazi, who are also going after the Ronin, as well as the big guy who we later find out is Kingpin, is also coming after the Ronin, and they go after Kate Bishop because they think that she knows who he is and is connected. And eventually Elena comes into this, and there's a lot of people, but that is the start of it and the synopsis of it. It all runs on the timeline of the 6 days leading up to Christmas. So every single episode is one day. And the ultimate goal of Clint is to get back home for Christmas. Now, I have it in my notes here to next talk about why this is my second favorite MCU show. But I wrote these notes up a day or two after I watched the Hawkeye show. And as if you'll realize now, it is the new year. Happy New Year, by the way. Hello, 2022. And it has been a while since I saw the finale. I've since watched Spider-Man No Way Home. No spoilers in this video. I promise I will not spoil Spider-Man No Way Home. I had a lot of problems with that. I knew pretty much everything about the movie going into it, so don't worry about that from me. But it has been a while since I saw this finale. I've since realized that this is my favorite MCU show. It was originally Loki. Loki was originally #1, and I believe in my mind that this has edged it out now, and it has edged it out in a lot of ways. One, I believe that this is the only MCU show so far that kept the same tone and atmosphere and pace throughout every single episode. It is also the only one that I was completely satisfied by the finale. And I'm gonna get a lot of people in the comments being like, Bailey, you dumb motherfucker, did you see that Loki finale? And of course I saw it. It was fantastic. He Who Remains is brilliant, and the fact that they were to make an entire episode just about a conversation was amazing. But I also felt like it was more of just a lead-in to season 2 and to open up things for the rest of the MCU. And in a contained show, I believe that the Hawkeye finale was more satisfying and wrapped up more loose ends, as well as it could, at least, with as many loose ends as it needed closing. On top of that, it introduced Kate Bishop, who is one of my favorite new characters introduced in the entirety of Phase 4. We've had quite a few new characters introduced it brought Yelena in, and the on-screen chemistry between Kate Bishop and Yelena Belova is stunning. She comes in episode 4, and every single moment that she is on screen is sublime. It's great. Kate and Yelena have a moment where they share a pot of mac and cheese, and they're just chatting, and the chemistry is just sparking between them.
Hi. I made macaroni if you want some.
And then later on, they have a fight through 30 Rock where Kate Bishop just says, stop getting me to like you. And Yelena's like, I can't help it.
That was a good one. That was good form. But you did a really cool body throw.
Yeah, thank you. Stop making me like you.
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
And it's just, if Marvel was not already planning a movie or a show, like a Hawkeye and Black Widow movie or show surrounding these two characters, they definitely are now. How could they not? Everybody, not just me, fell in love with them on screen. So I'm beyond excited to see something that just centers on those two people. And this is very much a two-lead show. It's Hawkeye, but from the very beginning, it stresses the fact that Clint is Hawkeye, but also Kate Bishop is now a Hawkeye, and neither one of them is more important or less important than the other one. I'd be interested to see a breakdown of screen time per these characters. I think they have staggeringly similar screen times. Seeing Clint struggle with the things he's done in the past and the difficulties he has had balancing work and family being a secret and work being avenging, and the PTSD that he holds from that and the damage he has done to his life because of that, and trying to stress to Kate Bishop that this hero thing isn't everything you think it's going to be, but her just being that fresh face being like, no, I've trained my whole life for this, and eventually coming to terms and realizing what he's talking about, but him also realizing that she is prepared for this and capable of taking on this mantle from him so he can maybe actually retire is really great, and it's handled wonderfully. And in Shang-Chi, I talked quite a bit about how the first third of the movie was a very nice street level flick, and then immediately after it went into a much larger global spanning thing with an operation much like Hydra where they're influencing the world, and then it went to mystical elements and dragons, and I just the ending kind of lost me because it had this typical Marvel third act problem. This one continues to be street level, and it is one of the few times within Marvel after all these heroes were introduced that I wasn't like, why are all these other superheroes not coming to help them? Because they're fighting people called tracksuit mafia. And yeah, eventually Kingpin comes in, but in the very end, and it always talks about how he's done a very good job keeping himself secret and behind the scenes. So it is truly a grounded street level fighting flick, much like what we saw on the Netflix MCU side. And I don't question the fact that other heroes aren't coming in. Thor coming into this would make no fucking sense, because why would he concern himself with guys that can't stop saying bro? You know what I mean?
We're escaping some!
Who are you talking about?
Bro, I found her.
On top of that, you have to address the fact that, yeah, these two people fighting don't have superpowers. Yeah, they're absolutely phenomenal with the bow and arrow, and they know martial arts, and they're good at car chases apparently, but they're going to get their ass kicked, and throughout this they get more and more brutalized and injured, and they have cuts and scrapes and bruises, and they get shot and almost die, and having them fight something that other Avengers would feel the need to come in and help for doesn't make sense, because at the end of the day they are just normal people. Clint's a super spy, and she's won multiple medals at nationals for martial arts and archery, but at the same time, they're people. Now, I will say one of the downsides is something that I've also said is a good thing, and that is that I feel like this show is juggling a little bit too much. They have Clint Barton and his family, they have Kate Bishop and her mom, and her fiance, Jack, the swordsman. And then they have Kingpin later on, but they also have Yelena and her backstory with the Black Widows and her quest to take down Clint Barton. But then they also have Maya and her quest to take down Ronan and Kazi, and then all the Tracksuit Mafia, and some of them even have some stories for them. And then they have the LARPers that come in eventually and help out. And there's just too much going on in periods in this show. And they do really well with all that, keeping the pace and keeping things interesting. But at the very end, when you have all these ends getting tied up and everything coming to closure. Some things just don't hit emotionally, and that is mainly Maya's storyline. Now, Maya is going to have her own show, Echo. She plays the character Echo, typically within the Daredevil universe, as well as Kingpin, typically in the Daredevil universe. But I feel like 90% of her stuff in this show could have been taken out, because in this, she kills Kazi, maybe. She kills Kingpin, maybe. But I don't really feel anything when she does that, because we haven't gotten enough time with her. We haven't gotten enough of her background. We don't really feel a whole lot. And I feel like those things would have been better saved for her show, Echo, where I could have actually cared about those, because what I was invested in this show was not Maya and Kazi, and to a lesser extent Kingpin. It was Kate and Yelena and Clint. One other downside that I could think of is that no surprise within this was actually surprising. As you've realized within this, I'm spoiling everything. Why are you watching this video? How'd you get this far if you didn't realize I was spoiling things? Stop just being angry at me and go watch something without spoilers. Jesus Christ. But nothing in this show is surprising. None of the twists and turns they had are surprising. In the end, when the big baddie ended up being Eleanor, Kate Bishop's own mother, I knew that from the start. From the very first episode, I knew that. If they were trying to make it a big twist, then they failed spectacularly. It was so obvious from the beginning.
What a twist!
And I knew from the beginning as well that Jack was just a red herring, that he was probably a good guy. He was just this sweet, dopey, rich guy that loved swords. And I knew from the beginning that the big guy they're talking about was Kingpin. And I knew from the beginning that Maya wasn't necessarily bad and she was going to kill Kazi. And none of this was surprising at all. I even guessed from the beginning that the watch was Laura's and that she was an ex-agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. And now I said that this is the only show or movie that has ever made me want to pick up a comic book. And that is because this is inspired very, very heavily from a recent Hawkeye comic book. And I have not read it myself, but I've listened to a lot of podcasts breaking down this comic book. And that is just because I have a lot more time in my life to listen to podcasts than I do to read. But from what I can understand, the influences behind this are very, very true to that comic book, as well as the art style and the setting. And if that's true from what I've heard about it, it is a brilliant comic book line that I want to read. And it really says a lot about the show that I've never cared to pick up a comic book and venture outside the MCU to the Marvel storyline within comics until right now. Now, everything bad that I said in the end there is fine. I talked a lot about WandaVision and the ups and downs of that. I talked a lot about Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki. The only TV show that I haven't talked about is What If, and that is just because I've yet to watch it. But a friend of mine recently told me that What If is actually important for the multiverse of madness. So I guess now I got to pick that up and watch it. I'll find the time somewhere. But I think this show captured something that nobody expected from it. And that was a good balance of all of these characters, a good introduction for Kate, a good introduction for the new Black Widow and Hawkeye working together. It showed us Yelena again, which I know we've all been fucking jonesing for more Yelena, because why wouldn't she? She's amazing. And it kept the balance of happy and sad really well through all of it, and then closed it up nicely without just cliffhanging to the next MCU thing, which so far in Phase 4, 90% of the things that they're making just cliffhang to the next MCU thing. And I understand that's the thing, but this is something that I can and have gone back to watch multiple times and enjoyed just as much on a second and third time, because it closes up nicely. I don't end it just going like, oh God, I can't wait for the next MCU thing to come out in 5 months to give me some fucking closure. But anyway, yeah, Hawkeye's the best MCU show. I don't know how many of you agree with me, but if you do, please let me know. And if you don't, please let me know. But be nice about it. Anyway, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out my other videos.